It's a real pleasure to be here. This is one of my highlights of my entire trip to Eretz Yisrael. Is to get a chance to see all of you steiging and growing, as they say. You can see the light of Kedusha on your faces. You can see the hard work that you've been doing over here. With all of the ups and the downs that happen in trying to acclimate yourself physically, spiritually, emotionally to Eretz Yisrael. It's the greatest place on earth that a person could possibly be. I trust and I assume and I hope that you're all taking advantage of the opportunity to be away from Los Angeles for the year, an opportunity to be in Eretz HaKodesh, in the holiest of places in the world. The Shabbosim that you'll have over here are something you'll not find anyplace else. The Chagim, I know, they make you find your own places and they don't take care of you. Don't complain. Moshe Rabbeinu never got here. The Vilna Gaon wanted several times to come, he couldn't get here. The HaChaim wanted to come here, he wasn't zeicher to be here. You're zeicher to be here. So one Shabbos is bad, the other one is amazing. You're here. So the school, the food's not so good. You're here. So your roommate, she snores too loud. So what? You're here in Eretz Yisrael. You're in the holiest of places, in the holiest in the whole world. Even the phone rings are holy in Eretz Yisrael. So I want to speak about an Indian tonight that perhaps can give us a little chizuk for the rest of the year. Maybe even the message is something that we have to keep it, that not maybe, it is something we have to keep in mind for the rest of our lives. It's very humbling to be in Eretz Yisrael. I was by a chasana the other night, and to my great surprise, I was called up for a bracha. But I was very humbled when I was called up for the bracha because everybody before me was HaGoyin HaTzadik. Goyin is like the genius, the tzaddik, the righteous one. They called me up HaGoyin, no tzaddik afterwards. So I'm only a goyin. Okay, fine. It's humbling to be in Eretz Yisrael, and that's really what we see in this week's and last week's parsha, and it'll segue into this week's parsha. Yaakov Avinu is coming off 21 years. He's been running away from his brother. He's been working his head off for his father-in-law, for Lavan. He had one wife, another wife. He did all the sheep, all the things, all the tricks of his father-in-law. And he says the following words, which are mystifying words. Katointi mikol chasadim mikol emes asher asisa es avdecha. I am humbled by all the chasadim and all the kindnesses that you have done, Rabbi Shalom, and all of the emes that you did to Avdecha, to your servant, to Yaakov Avinu. Was there really so much chesed in the life of Yaakov Avinu? He has to trick his father. He's on the run from Esav. He has to give up all of his possessions, all of his money, everything that he has, so that Eliphaz won't kill him, because he says that an ani is chashiv kameis, a poor man is considered to be a dead person, so that way he has nothing left. He comes to find a wife. He lays eyes on Rachel and he wants to marry her, and Lavan tricks him at the last minute and he has to marry Leah instead. But he says you can have Rachel also, just have to work another 7 years. 7 years, another 7 years, 7 years working the animals, the sheep. His father-in-law tricked him 1,000 times. As he himself says in the previous week's parsha, it was cold, it was hot, it was miserable, it was hard, it was very difficult. Yaakov Avinu went, if you count from the time that he left his parents' house, 35 years. Not a hug from mommy and tati, not his own bed to sleep in, not his favorite food on Shabbos, nothing. Only misery after misery after misery, and yet Yaakov Avinu says, Katointi mikol chasadim, I've been humbled by all of the chesed, by all the kindness that you did to me. Where's all the chesed in Yaakov Avinu's life? How did HaKadosh Baruch Hu give him so much acts of kindness and rachmanis in the last 35 years of his life. So then he adds the following. And he says, why? Why is it chesed? Ki b'makli avarti as hayarden hazeh. Because I crossed over this Yarden River with only a makil, only a staff in my hand. I had nothing. V'yata hayisi l'shnei machanais, and now I am as big as 2 entire encampments. All of Shiftei Kah, the tribes, have been born over the last 21 years of my life. And that's all of the chesed that you have done for me. Says Yaakov Avinu, an amazing thing. Although that there were so many things in his life over those 21 years, it will take it all 35 years, from the time that he's on the run from his brother Esav, and has no place to go, and he's sitting and learning 14 years, he doesn't even lay down in the bed for all that time. Says Yaakov, as bad as everything looked, Kol HaChasadim, everything was a chesed from the Rebbeinu Shalom. Because when I walked into this town, I had nothing, and now I have everything. I have children, I have money, I have stature, I have wealth, I have the future of all of Klal Yisrael. Which means that the hardest things that a person is going to go through in their life, the most difficult challenges that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to put them through, the times of nisyonos that are going to break down and crush down on a person, says Yaakov Avinu, Kol HaChasadim, it's all chesed from Hashem. The Kol HaEmes, and it's all truth. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if it wouldn't be for that, I would not have been zeiche to the Shiftei Kah, to all of the tribes of Klal Yisrael. It's the hard knocks of life. It's the challenges that a person will go through. It's the difficulties that they have that are going to help them to become the great person they have to be. Many years ago, during this week's Parsha, we had with us in our shul Yonatan Razel. He's probably one of the only Ehrlich, besides Uri Davidi, he's probably one of the only Ehrlich singers that is left in Klal Yisrael. He's a man who still has a flip phone. He has a koilel, and he learns in koilel all morning. And he told me several times when I saw him, nobody can reach me all the first Seder from whatever it is, 8 or 9 in the morning to 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It's kodesh hakedashim, nobody can touch him. He's just busy learning Torah. And he writes beautiful, very, very beautiful and deep music. So he told me that his grandfather was a survivor of the war. And towards the end of his life, he told his grandson, Yonatan, if you ever write a song about me, I want you to write it to the words Ketointi in this week's Parsha. Why? What's the story? He said, he told his grandson the following: when I was a young boy, or a young man, and the Nazis, Yamach Shalom, came into our town, and they began putting everybody onto the cattle cars, and they shipped us off to the concentration camps. Nobody could imagine what the conditions were on those cattle cars. People shoved in together, one little window somewhere towards the top of the car, where we got air and light, and you knew that there was a world that was out there. Conditions were horrific. People were dying around us. We knew that the end result of this ride was going to be somewhere Auschwitz, some Bergen-Belsen, some kind of concentration camp, most likely to die. And I looked at that window and I said to myself, my only chance at life is if I have the courage to leap out of that window. But how can you leap out of a window when the train is going, zipping down hundreds of miles per hour? So he realized that every once in a while the train would start to slow down for a little while, and then it would take off and go fast again. And he realized that every time it slowed down is because it was coming around a bend, And he climbed up and he looked out the window and he saw that when it comes around the bend, it slows down enough that if somebody wanted to jump out of the window and take a chance and jump onto the mountainside, that could be their ticket to freedom. What will happen when you jump? Maybe you'll break an arm, you'll break a leg, you don't know. But if you're going to Auschwitz, almost guaranteed you're not leaving. So the night is running on. And he tells himself, this is my chance before the train stops at the concentration camp. I must jump out of the window. And the car begins slowing down, coming around the bend. And he walks over to the window. And he gets so nervous and scared what's going to be. Can't do it. And the car keeps going on. And a few hours later, once again, it comes around the bend. And it slows down. He says to himself, this is my chance. He walks over to the window. He puts a hand up. I can't do it. I'm afraid. I can't do it. And the car runs on for another hours. And suddenly it slows down. And it's coming around the bend of a mountain. And he tells himself, if I don't do it now, when am I ever going to do it? He climbs up, he pushes himself in the wind, he jumps out of the train car. He lands onto the mountainside, he breaks his arm immediately. But he's alive. He pulls himself together. He begins walking through the forest. He finds some other people that are out there in the forest hiding throughout the war, and he survives the entire war, somehow miraculously, miracle after miracle, in the woods, in the forest, no food, no clothes, no nothing. He survives. When the war was over and all of the Allied forces came in, and the concentration camps were liberated, he found himself on a bus and on a boat, and he ended up all the way in Eretz Yisrael. And he told his grandson Yonatan, I came to Eretz Yisrael with nothing more than a shirt on my back. And he wasn't a religious man. He says, but then after I had children, and they had children, what happened? You went on and you became a Baal Tshuva. You became religious, and your brother became religious. And you made your parents religious, and you have grandchildren that are my great-grandchildren. And he said, I look around the room right now, he said, I have children, I have grandchildren, I have great-grandchildren, going in the ways of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Torah. Kataiti mikol hachasadim umikol ha'emes. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you have humbled me from all of the kindness and all of the emes, all of the truth that you have done with me. And he did write a beautiful song, anyone that knows it. But the point of the matter is that whatever you think that it is that you're going through in your life, that's not a chesed, that's not a kindness, that's not an emes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't know what he's doing. It's adarab, it's just the opposite. HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows very well, and it's all the chesed of Hashem. And this really is, we find in the Mesilas Yesharim the following words. Nimseinu lemeidim. We find, says the Ramchal, the following lesson in life. Ki ikar mitzius ha'adam ba'olam hazeh hu, the main mitzius. You're all in Eretz Yisrael. We have to translate still, or now you know? Okay. The ikar mitzius, for those of you that are too embarrassed to say yes, the main goal and the purpose of a person in this world is rak lekayim mitzvahs, is to keep the mitzvahs, v'la'avoid, and to serve Hashem, v'la'avoid b'nisoyin, and to stand up to the nisoyin, to the challenge of life that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will send you. So before we get to the last part of our mitzias, let's just understand the first part. What does the Ramchal mean when he says that you're supposed to be mekayim the mitzvahs? and serve Hashem. If you're keeping mitzvahs, aren't you serving Hashem? How could you serve Hashem better than by keeping Hashem's mitzvahs? And yet the Ramchal writes you have to be Mekayim the mitzvahs and you have to serve Hashem. Because the answer is, and I hope that you're learning this in Eretz Yisrael, there's a lot of people that keep mitzvahs in life. There's a lot of people that daven, a lot of people that say brachas, a lot of people that keep Shabbos. There's a lot of people that have shmiras from Lashon Hara and the like. There's a lot of people that are very, very frum. But it doesn't mean that they're serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Avodas Hashem is a different madrega, it's a different level altogether. I'm not doing things because I'm told to do them. I'm not doing things because I feel forced into doing them. I don't do things because I feel like I have no choice but to do them, but rather the reason that I'm doing the things that I'm doing is because I'm a servant of the Rebbeinu Shalom. Says the Ramchal, you have to keep mitzvahs, but you have to take it to another level. You have to be an Oved Hashem. And that's something, while you're here in Eretz Yisrael, that you can learn, you can see Avodas Hashem without WhatsApp. Believe it or not. You can serve the Rebbeinu Shalom without WhatsApp. You can serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu on Shabbos without sushi on your table. Believe it or not. You can serve the Eibishter with a davening in a small corner somewhere in your seminary. Nobody knows you, nobody sees you, nobody hears about you. They don't even know the eyeballs on the sitter on the eyeball move from Beis Yaakov. Just daven to Hashem. Because you want to daven to Hashem. And you know that He wants to hear your tefillahs. That's avodas Hashem. But the last thing he writes is, V'la'amoi b'nisayim. That means that just like all of your life is filled with mitzvahs, and all of your life is filled with avodas Hashem, so too all of our life is going to be filled with nisyonos, with challenges. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu will make it in such a way that your goal and your job is to be oymid, to stand tall, to stand strong, to have the courage, the inner strength to be able to overcome the challenges that the Rebbeinu Shalom has given you in this life. But Rabbi Chaskel Leveshin says an an amazing thing on this. And he writes, since that this is the main creation of what man is all about, to be oymid in the Nisayim, to confront what HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends him. V'chein af ikar v'tachlis kol habriya kula. That means that the tachlis of the entire creation is also, says Rav Chaskel, lahamid as ha'adam b'nisoyin, to stand a person up in the challenges. V'lirois im yischazik mizeh b'munasai, will he strengthen himself in his amunah? Or lehepech, or God forbid, the opposite, yikashaba, will he stumble? Says Rav Chaskel an amazing thing. Your job in this world is to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. One of the ways, and one of the foundational ways that we serve Hashem is, there will be nisyonos. You can't avoid them, you cannot escape them, they're going to be there, but you have to be oymid in them. So Hashem made a world, a bria, that works all together to create the atmosphere in this planet that we are in, that allows you to be oymid, to stand up in the nisyonos, in the challenges that you will go through. Which means the following idea, which is an amazing idea. The more things that you find in your life that are challenging, the more they are in line with the Tachlis Habriya. The more people that you confront in your life, who are the ones that give you the biggest challenges and difficulties. Like I'm sure all of you must have some really annoying girl from New York in your room. I'm sure. If they're from Flatbush, it's still okay, but 5 towns, forget about it. Everything, designer, brand name. You can't even touch the shoes. If you make one scuff, that's it. You're out of the room. The Dalet Amos is really, the whole room becomes the Dalet Amos. You like it cold, they like it hot. You like it hot, they like it cold. You like music off by 11, they like it off by 11:30. You don't like that they're watching. You complain about this that they do. No, they can do anything that they want because they're from the 5 towns. The more challenging that roommate is this year, the more that you have to work on your midos. The more that you have to just be mevateres and give up the things that are no longer important to you because you're here to serve the Rabbi Shalom at least for 1 year of your life in seminary. The greater that person's value is in your life because they are part of Tachlis Habriya. The coat shoes and the Gucci belt and all the other stuff that they have that you're not allowed to touch, chas v'shalom, if you do, that's it, they'll report you to the Menahelis. That's all Tachlis Habriya. And it's here to make you a better person. It's here to make you work on yourself. To not let people bother you. How many girls call home every day when they first get to seminary? The room, there's 4 beds in the room. What were you expecting? A suite in the hotel? It's a dormitory. There's more than 1 girl in the school. You don't have a penthouse suite on the top floor over here. Of course there's more than 1 girl in the room. Yeah, but there's bunk beds. And so what? But the closet, yes, so what? And the showers, the floor is dirty. And so what? You came to seminary for the luxuries. Gimel devar niktim b'yisurim. There are 3 things, says the Gemara, that are acquired with yisurim. Yisurim means suffering. For a girl from LA, suffering means that she doesn't have a bottom bunk and has to sleep on the top. That's yisurim. Yisurim is that you're pouring out your milk in the morning from a bag and not from a carton. That's Yisurim. Yisurim is there's too much carbohydrates in this seminary over here. What happened to all the vegetables and the peppers and the tomatoes and the lettuce that's supposed to be checked by Gush Katif over here? Says the Gemara. There are 3 things that are nikdim b'Yisurim: Torah, Olam Haba, and Eretz Yisrael. You're trying to acquire all 3. Torah you came to learn. I think you have to learn like every Ramban that was ever written before in the Pasha. You have to write drashas, in Yiddish probably. Or in Diktuk, that's like the most amazing Ivrit that was ever seen before. You're up all night long cramming for the final exam. So you came to learn Torah. Olam Haba, every mitzvah that you do, every midah that you're misaking, every chesed that you're involved with, everything that you're all of Avodas Hashem is all Olam Haba. And Eretz Yisrael. Why didn't you go to seminary like some of the other girls in Borough Park or Lakewood? Because you wanted to be in Eretz Yisrael. Or at least you think it's good for shidduchim, one or the other. Maybe both. But you wanted to have the Kedusha of Eretz Yisrael. That means Chazal are telling us. You cannot avoid the fact that while you're here this year, it's not always going to be easy. And it's not always going to go the way that you want. And the morale says, what's the reason? The reason is because these 3 things are so ruchni. They're so ruchni, they're so spiritual, that the body and our gashmi, the way that we are, cannot be makabel, cannot accept these 3 things. And therefore, HaKadosh Baruch has to break us down a little bit in the physical world so that we can connect and commune with the spiritual. So, if you don't like the showers, that's why you came to Eretz Yisrael. If you don't like the food or the water, it's your tummy, so soft. You didn't come here for Evian water. You did not come here for gourmet meals. You didn't come here for a latte, even though I think you get more lattes, kosher, chalav Yisrael here than you get anyplace else in the world. You came here for Torah, Olam Haba, and Eretz Yisrael. And those are the nisyonos that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will put you through, but it's all part of Tachlis Habriya. So like Yaakov Avinu was able to be moiled, he brought into this world Shiftei Kal. He became the Bechir Shabbat, the greatest of all the forefathers. Dafka, because of all the nisyonos, it's the challenges of our life that make us the great people who we are. And we see it later in the Parsha. Yaakov Avinu wrestles with the Malach, and the Malach decides, I'm going to give you a brand new name. And he tells him, "Vayomer lo Yaakov yeimar oid shimcha." Your name is no longer Yaakov. Kim Yisrael Sarisa, because Kim Yisrael. Your name now is Yisrael. Ki Sarisim Elokim, because you wrestled with Elokim. V'imanashim, and with men, Lavan and Esav. Vatuchal, and you won. So there's two questions on this pasuk over here. The Malach comes along and he says, I'm changing your name. You know why I'm changing your name? Because you wrestled with the Malach and you won. So shouldn't the name of Yaakov Avinu then be Vasuchal? Yankel Suchal. You are the one who defeated the Malach. So Yisrael is a name that implies the wrestling itself. It's not about the match, it's about the Suchal, about the victory. And second of all, the grammar is not correct. I'm sure that you're all experts now in Dikduk, in Eretz Yisrael. If he says, Ki Sarisa, you wrestled with the Malach, with Hashem, so then his name should be Sarisa Kel, or Saris Kel. Yisrael is a language of Yis, with the Yud is always the Asid, always the future. Yisrael, you will wrestle with the Hashem. It's not you will, you did already wrestle. So number one, why is his name about the wrestling and not the suchal, not the victory? And number two, why isn't it that your name is what you already accomplished, not what you will accomplish? And the Sfas Emes writes over here on these words. He says, "Ubevadai nishar koyach zeh b'kol ish Yisrael." The koyach that a Jew has to wrestle with the challenges of life, to wrestle with Elokim, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends what He calls chesed, but we look at it as sometimes we don't understand. Ve'anoshim, and we wrestle with our roommates, and that teacher that we don't like, and that family that we went to for a Shabbos that was so disturbing. I remember my wife, when she was in seminary many years ago, she went to a family in YERUSHALAYIM Kodesh. The Shalom Bayis was awful in that house. Screaming, yelling Friday night by the Suda. The way they treated the kids, awful. She walked out of there, she was crying her eyes out. How could it be that I came all the way to Eretz Yisrael to see the beauty and the glory of Shabbos, and this is what I see? So she went to one of her Rabbi, and she said to him, this is Torah? Torah makes people scream at their children? Torah makes husbands and wives be nasty to each other in Eretz Yisrael? So he told her very wise words. Do not judge the Torah by the people. Judge the Torah by the Torah. There will be plenty of people in Klal Yisrael that will make big mistakes in the way that they live. They should not be the people that you choose to be your example of what represents Torah. They don't understand what Torah is. If a husband yells at his wife Friday night by the Seudah, then he certainly doesn't understand what a husband's job and role is in this world. If a mother, as stressed out as she is, yells at her children by the Suda Friday night when there are guests at the table and gives them a nice patch right across the face for everyone to see, no matter how stressed out she is, she doesn't understand what Torah is all about. She doesn't understand controlling your anger, controlling your emotions, being in touch with yourself, being a higher level to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. She doesn't understand. So don't let that person who bothers you be in your mind an example of what Torah is. They're not an example of Torah. They're living, they're trying, they're struggling like everybody else is. But when you come to Eretz Yisrael and you see people that are living lives of Torah, when you see people that are dveikim b'Hashem Elokeichem, you see people that are moiser nefesh and they're smiling throughout the entire thing. The wife's got like 17 children around her and she's trying to bring the chicken soup outside and it spills onto the ground and she's smiling and she's laughing the whole time through. Know that you're seeing something over here you can't find it anyplace else in the world. But says the Sfas Emes, HaKadosh Baruch Hu certainly left over inside of the nefesh and the DNA of our spirituality for all generations the ability that every single one of us has to wrestle with the challenges of life. And that's why the name is Yisrael. Not the sucha that you won. It's not about the victory. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you leave that up to Hashem. It's about the wrestling and the struggle and the being involved in the nisyonos and overcoming the nisyonos and being oimed b'nisayim the best that you possibly can. Yisrael with a yud in the future, because the nisyonos will never go away. You're always going to be wrestling with something. Just when you get over one thing, guess what? There's something around the corner. Just when you conquer this midah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will give you another midah. Just when you finally figured out in the world of Amunah, this finally makes sense to you, something else will happen that will create a suffix, a doubt in your head, and you have to be mechazik even more in your Amunah. That is the world that we live in. And that's the way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu set it up. And that is Tachlis HaBriya. A couple of weeks ago in that place that we all come from, that we don't want to think about while we're here, Los Angeles. You're in the Holy Land. You don't have to worry about LA. LA is it's going to fine without you. It's okay. It's going to function. It's all good. Enjoy over here. Soak it up. I was going to give a shiur about a Karas HaTov someplace. And the message of the shiur was that if you learn how to focus in on the positive and not look at the negative, so you'll be so grateful to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, all the positive that you have in your life, you won't get bogged down and drawn down by the negative or the things that you think are so bad. So I happened to bump into that morning Rabbi Asher Zadmir. Rabbi Asher Zadmir, for those of you who do know or don't know, I'm sure that I mentioned him in class before. 23 or 24 years ago, there were 14 Iranian Jews in the city of Shiraz that were taken into prison, into captivity, because they were accused of being spies for the land of Israel. And the ringleader was Rabbi Asher Zadmir, because he was the chief rabbi of Shiraz, so he must have been the biggest of all the spies. The man's about this tall. I don't even know if he's 5, maybe 5'2". He's the warmest, sweetest, nicest, happiest person in the world. Could not hurt a fly. There's no way that he was a spy for Israel, but they framed him and they brought him into custody, and for the next 4 to 6 years of his life, they tortured him physically, emotionally, and spiritually. I asked him, Rabbi Zadmir, how did you keep a positive attitude when you were in the Gehenna of prison and you were being tortured? How did you see past all the darkness and know that the light is going to come? How did you do that? So he said, I'll tell you a story. One day they whisked me out of my prison cell and they bring me into a room. And all that's in the room is a table in the middle, and there are 6 big, devious prison guards all holding on to whips. And they lay me across the table like this, and they chain my hands down. And then they chain down my feet, and they rip off my shirt. And there's 3 guards standing on one side of me, and there's 3 guards standing on the other side of me. I'll try to make it as least graphic as I possibly can. And then the guards begin taking turns one by one, whipping me on my back. Now if one guard is doing all the whipping, eventually he's going to get tired. His arm will start to get weak, and the lashes will get a little weaker also. But if there's 6 people, one by one, it doesn't let up. And they're going one by one. He says at that moment, the following pasuk in Tehillim Kuf Yutes fell into my mind. And the pasuk says, Yedati Hashem, I know Hashem. Ki tzedek mishpatecha, your judgments are tzedek, they are righteous. Ve'emuna inisani, and you have afflicted me be'emuna with your faithfulness. So here he is getting whipped. And the pasuk that falls into his mind is that everything that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does is all tzedek u'be'emuna, it's all chesed from Hashem. And so he starts saying the pasuk out loud to be mechazik himself with every whip. And the guard that's standing close to his face says, Zamir, you're cursing us. Are you cursing us? What are you saying? And he said, no, I'm not cursing you. Because you're not the one that's whipping me. My God is the one that is whipping me. And I'm thanking my God for kaparat avonot, that He is forgiving me for all of my sins with every whip that He is putting me through. Continue. I don't know about you, but when I stub my toe in the middle of the night, the pasuk in Tehillim Kuf Yutes is probably not the first thing that falls into my head. But here's a man that's being whipped, and he told me that until this very day, he still suffers back pain because of that whipping that he took. But he recognized it's all the Rabbi Shalom. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is doing it for my benefit, and He wants me to grow. And that's why the things that we complain about in life, the things that make us sad, the things that bring us down, the things that really bother us and frustrate us, we'll talk about in seminary. They're small things, they're big to you. Because in the sheltered life, more or less, that many of you have lived all the years, when you finally have to deal with another human being that's not your best friend you grew up with, it's not your sister, it's not your brother, some strange girl from some strange place called 5 Towns, suddenly it's so difficult. It's so hard. Why does she have to wear so much makeup every single day? Don't understand. We're in seminary. What's going on over here? She gets her hair done at the hair place every week. What's the matter with her? Don't worry about it. That's what she does. Leave it alone. The girl that snores. You never had a friend that snored? You know, when we were kids, the friend came over, we used to pinch his nose so he'd stop snoring. You can't do that here in seminary. Probably somewhere in the rule book over there, you are not allowed to pinch a girl's nose while she's snoring. Get some earplugs. Get a fan. Get a noise machine. Stay up all night and say Tehillim. I don't know, do something. But it's just part of the nisyonos that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is sending your way because, as we learned many times together, HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends the Nisayon because He wants to bring out the best that is inside of you. Now Ramban says in the Parshas a few weeks ago, Elokim Nises Avraham. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu tested Avraham Avinu, what was the test? He knew that he could do it. He knew what Avraham Avinu had. But Avraham Avinu did not yet know all of the greatness that he had inside of himself. The strength, the potential, the greatness of Emunah, the bitachon in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the willingness to be an Eved and do whatever Hashem says, on that he did not do yet. Many things he did, but not that far yet. The entire Akedah was not for Hashem to see what Avraham can do. It was for Avraham Avinu to understand what he was capable of accomplishing. So let's just review the ideas. Number one, Yaakov Avinu was zeicher to become the father of all of Klal Yisrael because he went through years and years and years and years of struggles and nisyonos. And at the end of those 21 years, or if you add in when he left his father's house, 35 years, he looks at it all as what? As chasadim mikol chasadim. I thought it wasn't all chesed Hashem. I thought it was rough all these years. But now I realize chasadim is all chesed ve'emes, and it's all truth. Remember, every nisayon that HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes, tailor-made just for you. Probably we have to speak about all the girls that think they made the wrong choice in the seminary they chose. Nobody in this room, of course, I'm sure. I'm sure everybody got here from being number one. This is the greatest place on earth. I am so happy that I'm here. But how about all the girls who thought that it was going to be different? All the girls who, on the brochure, it looks so fun. It looks so exciting, and then you get there, and it's so serious, and it's so boring, and the dormitory is so broken down, and the food is really not as good as they said it was, and the Minahelis, who was so nice at the interview, is the meanest lady in the world. That's all part of this year in seminary. And those that make the best out of it, they become the best people this year. Those that stop the complaining after Hanukkah time, can complain over the Hanukkah. And Hanukkah already is lahoidois ulahalel. That's the whole ala nisim that we're going to be beginning to say. Lahoidois ulahalel. To praise HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to thank Hashem and to praise Hashem. After Hanukkah, no more complaints. Try it. No more complaints after Hanukkah. Even when they bought, no more complaints. I'm not going to complain anymore. I'm going to say, thank you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that you sent this person here to challenge me. Because they are tachlis hapriya. The more challenging they are, the more tachlis hapriya they are. The more she annoys you and gets on your nerves, the more tachlis. When I was a bacher in yeshiva, I had a roommate who intruded in our room. We had 4 guys in the room. We were together already for 2 or 3 years. Everybody was happy with each other. One of the guys went on to another yeshiva. We had an empty bed, and they threw in a 4th person, the intruder. Why was he the intruder? Because he was the biggest mafunik. You know what mafunik is? Probably some of you. Mafunik is someone that's so delicate by nature. If the air is too cold, if the heat is too hot, if somebody has on their shoes make too much noise when they walk in the middle of the night, if the light creeps into the room at too late at night, they go crazy. This guy was, if you would open the dictionary and look for mafunik, he was there in the dictionary, his picture. He comes into the room, we all had it down. The air is set on a certain temperature, the lights go out at a certain time, you're allowed to come in and out of the room whenever you want. If you're learning in the basement late at night, no problem, everybody's good. Not when Mr. Mafunik moved in. One night at Shabbos, so suddenly in the middle of the night, everybody starts sweating. Now in Baltimore, the humidity is so bad, you could like cut it with a knife. When it's hot and humid, it's miserable. So every room has its own air conditioning unit. And we would leave on the air conditioning all Shabbos. One Shabbos, maybe the week or two after this fellow moved in, suddenly in the middle of the night, everybody's waking up like 3 o'clock in the morning, sweating. What happened to the air conditioning? And nobody knows what's going on. So in the morning we ask, excuse me, Mr. Mafunik, do you know anything about the air conditioning? And he tells us, of course, I changed the timer. What do you mean you changed the timer? It's too cold at night. I can't sleep when it's so cold. I changed the timer so it will go off now every night at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. You don't even ask us. So we told you, you're not allowed to do that anymore. You have to keep it on. We can't sleep if. So we had an argument. The week or so later was Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah, we set the timer. We had it on the whole night. First night of Rosh Hashanah, the air goes off at 2 o'clock in the morning. He switched the timer before Rosh Hashanah. Do you know how furious everybody was that Rosh Hashanah? Do you know what we're thinking to ourselves? Cursing him in our minds in the worst year. Chas v'chalila. This young man gave us an opportunity to work on our midos on Rosh Hashanah. On the day that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is judging us to see what kind of a person we're going to be for the up and coming year. Are you going to be a person who cares about air conditioning? Or are you going to be a person who cares about Avodas Hashem? Are you going to care about the guy that's driving you crazy? Are you going to overcome that? What are you going to do? Now, at the end of the day, I went and I complained to the Mashiach. I said, this is not fair. He's ruining our room. We can't live like this. So he told us, by Shidduchim, I always think that instead of calling the Rabbi and instead of calling the family friend, they should call the roommate. They should ask the roommate, what kind of a guy is this in the room? Does he follow with everybody else? Is he ma'urav mavris or not? Lamais at the end, the guy felt so bad. He realized what he was wrong. The next year, Erev Rosh Hashanah came groveling to all of us, asking for mechila. We said, mechila? For what? What did you do wrong? I have no idea what you're talking about. No, you know it. No, we don't know what you're talking about. What are you talking about? When you train yourself to overcome the silly little things in life, you'll have much more siyata d'shmayim. And that's what it says. Yisrael's name, Yaakov was changed to Yisrael. Yisrael, because it's not about the victory. It's not about the results that are going to come out from it. It's all about the Sarisim Elokim in the struggle and the fighting and the wrestling match itself. And Yisrael with the Yud, you will always be struggling. You'll always be fighting. There's no way to get around it. But keep in mind that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made it that way. Because that's Tachlis Abriya. Because the only way that you can actualize the greatest stuff that's inside of you, the only way you can bring out your greatest midos, your greatest sablanis, your greatest YERUSHALAYIM, your greatest emunah, the only way that you can do it. This Rabbi Zadmir told me so many times, I would never wish what I went through on anybody, but I would never trade it in for anything in the world. Because the kesher nitzchi, the long-lasting bond in my relation that I have with HaKadosh Baruch Hu is like nothing that I could have had any other way. I'm like this with Hashem, and He's a Baal Simcha like you've never seen. One of the most exciting parts of being in Eretz Yisrael are taxi rides. Because I don't know what it is about the Jewish Israeli people. I don't know, maybe by the girls it's a little different, but when a man gets into the back seat of the car, the taxi driver decides within about maybe 3 seconds to begin unloading his entire life on you. Whatever he's going through, whatever is on his mind, whatever advice he would like to give to a person, within about 3 seconds he's already launching off on his campaign. So I have gotten drushes on Shalom Bayis, how to be a good husband. I have gotten drushes on how to take care of my health and how to be the simcha all of the time. I got drushes from a person who's going through trying to become a tour guide, and he was just about to pass his exam, and then they changed all the regulations. Now he's stuck for the next few years, but I shouldn't have to worry because on Facebook he found a way that he's able to broadcast his abilities, and he can still get people to come and take his tour guides. I said, Facebook, what's Facebook? I had never heard of it before. It's a joke, come on. Wow, you get so serious over here in there. But the best car ride that I had was from a Yid by the name of Reuven. And my son and I were in HaChaim trying to get a taxi back to the hotel. And one after the other is just driving past us, putting out a hand. Nothing, this one is full, this one's not full. This guy drove too fast, he missed us. I could get a taxi. Finally, a taxi comes and he pulls up and we get in the back seat. And a nice guy, quiet. I thought, Baruch Hashem, I'm finally going to have a quiet car ride. But then, with like tears in his eyes, I have to tell you something. And he begins to tell me, I'm 58 years old. And just 8 years ago, just 8 months ago, I was chozer b'tshuva. Let me tell you my story. And the man begins to tell me that he had COVID very bad. He said, first of all, he said, I was chiloni shebechiloni. You know, you have like on the sphere sa'omer, hayit shebahayit, chesed shebechesed. He said, I was chiloni shebechiloni. We didn't know anything. We did not do anything. We did not observe anything. I grew up in Eretz Yisrael, nothing. My bar mitzvah, my parents schlepped me to the koisel. They put tefillin on me, and then they took me away. That's the only Jewish thing I ever did in my entire life. Nothing. We're raising, he said, I'm married, I have 3 daughters. No religion, nothing at all, nothing. He said about 12 months ago, I got COVID, very bad. I thought I was okay, but it was much worse than I thought. And I was at home, and I was getting more and more sick. And the next thing I know, I'm not breathing very well at all. And my wife sees that it's like emergency. And she quickly calls the ambulance, 911, and they come and they rush me off to the hospital. And by the time that I get to the hospital, I have stopped breathing. I went into a coma for the next 6 weeks of my life. He said a few hours before I woke up, the doctors had told my wife and my children and all the family, whoever wants to see this man before he dies, they better come now because in 3 hours he's gone from the world. And suddenly, as I'm lying in the hospital bed hooked up to all the tubes and the breathing machines and the blood machines and heart and everything, suddenly I open my eyes. And I see around me the doctors, he said, they're all wearing like the suits. He said, I thought I was like in Disneyland or something. I had no idea where I was. I had no idea what's going on. And slowly but surely they began to explain to me what happened, that I had been in a coma, that I had COVID, that I had stopped breathing, and they thought I was going to die, and it's a miracle that I'm alive. For the next 5 weeks, I was in the hospital, and they were nursing me back to health. And then after that, I went 4 weeks to a rehabilitation center where I could begin to learn how to use my body again and learn how to walk and everything. And then they finally sent me home. And for 2 weeks at home, I wasn't allowed to go out. I couldn't do anything. I had to rest and take good care of myself. After all these weeks and months, one day I walk outside of my apartment complex. And down the road from me is a dati neighbor, a religious man. And he sees me, he says, where have you been? I said, wow, you won't believe. And I begin telling him everything that I went through, the miracle that happened, how I came back to life, how it's an impossibility. And the man said, Barachta Gomel. I said, Gomel? Not Gomel. Did you say a bracha? Did you say Gomel to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu that your life was saved? He said, I don't even know what that is. You didn't go to the Beit HaKnesset? He said, I haven't been to a shul my entire life. He said, okay, today's Thursday. Shabbos morning, Shabbat Boker. You stand outside of your building, 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm taking you to the Beit HaKnesset. And you have to say the Gomel. To thank Hashem that He saved your life. I said, okay. Okay, I'll come. Shabbos morning, I go downstairs. I'm waiting for the man. 8 o'clock on the dot, we go to shul. I get to the shul. I've never been in a synagogue in my life. Could you imagine? 58 years old, growing up in Israel. Never went to a shul in my life. I'm saying, he said, my head is swimming with all these emotions, trying to put everything into place. They call me up for Gomel. I make the bracha on Gomel. I start crying. I sit back down. The davening is over. I go home. I thank my friend. I go home. And I'm sitting in my house. A whirlwind of ideas and thoughts are going through my head. And by the end of Shabbat, I said to myself the following. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu saved my life, and He brought me back from the dead, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants me to live my life in a way that's going to be valuable to Him. I told my wife on Motzei Shabbat, Anachnu Datiim, we're becoming religious. Shabbat and Kashrut right away. He looks at me and he says, this was 8 months ago. He said, I keep Shabbat. I threw away all of my dishes, all my pots, all of my pans. I have a kosher kitchen. My wife started covering her hair. My children, I took them out of public school. I put them into religious school. Do you know what it's like? A 16-year-old girl to go from a public school to religious school? Ani kid barzel, he says, I'm like iron. Stood up to my family, stood up to friends, stood up to everybody, and my wife and my kids. They're unbelievable. They're going along with everything. Until today. Of what just happened before I came to pick you up. He said, my wife works in a big office building, and they made a lot of money last month in that particular business. And so the boss wants to reward everybody who works in the company with a very special bonus. What's the bonus? He's taking everyone in the families for the weekend, starting Thursday through Sunday, to Turkey. Turkey. And my wife comes home, she's so excited, look at this, all expenses paid trip, we're going to be there. And I said, no way we're going there. We've been so good these last 8 months. Mapa Turkey, there's nothing there. Chil Shabbos, no, not kosher food. We're not going there with all these people. We're not going. And my wife said, please, please, please. I said, no. We've worked too hard. We've accomplished too much. We've come too far. We're going to have a beautiful Shabbat over here. I'm going to make it so special. I'm going to buy the best foods, the best treats. I'll take care of everything. Please, we cannot go. And I worked on my wife. And my wife said, okay, we won't go. But you better make this Shabbat something special. He says, one of my daughters has a very sensitive intestinal kind of disease. She needs special medication. And I had all the money for her medication, and I had all the money for the Shabbos food in my car, in my glove compartment. And I brought my car into the shop. I needed a little bit of tune-up or something. I brought my car into the shop earlier today. And as I am leaving the shop, after they said everything is fine, I go to the glove compartment to get the envelopes. I go shopping. And the envelope of all of the money is gone. So I go over to the people, the mechanic, and I said, excuse me, did you see what happened to the money? No, didn't say anything. Well, there was money. There was an envelope. It had 700 shkolim in there. I need that money for myself. It's not there. Do you know where it is? No idea. You didn't take it. So they start looking on the cameras, the security cameras, and they see that the car was parked in a certain place and the window was down. An Arab was walking down the street. He looked around, he reached his hand into the car, opened up the glove compartment, found the money, took it, and he ran. I don't have money now for Shabbat. I don't have money for my daughter's medication. I begged my wife not to go to Turkey. I told my children I'm going to make the best Shabbat ever. It's already very late. It was Thursday night. The banks now are closed until Monday. I can't even get a penny out of my bank account right now. I was sitting in my car crying my eyes out to Hashem. Please, Hashem, we're doing so much for you. Please, send the Yeshua. When I stopped crying, he said, I started driving. And you and your son are the first people I picked up. I'm embarrassed, he said, to even ask. But maybe HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent you to help me. Is it possible you can loan me the money right now? On Monday, I can get it to my bank account. I'll pay you back. I just cannot let my wife and my children down after everything, all the Mesirat Nefesh they have. I said, how much you need again? 700 shkalim, $200. Which American doesn't come to Eretz Yisrael with an extra $200 in their pocket? So I took out the money and I told them like this, I'm giving you the money. I'm not taking the money back. Because I want you to tell your wife that anybody who keeps the Shabbos and anybody who tries so hard for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Harbe Shluchim L'Makor, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has many, many shluchim, many, many messengers, and He will take care of you. Please tell your wife that in the source of everything she's doing, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is taking care of everything she needs. I give him the money. He starts crying, he's hugging me. And he says, I'm embarrassed to ask. I said, could you give me 100 more shekel? I want to buy my wife a beautiful gift for Shabbos to let her know how much it really means to me. What American doesn't have an extra 100 shekel in his pocket? I said, here it is. Go buy your wife a beautiful present and have a beautiful Shabbos. The way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made the world is a world that was made for us to wrestle with and struggle with, but to grow from. And every little scenario and situation that a person is sent in their life, it's given specifically to that person and not another one, to your address and not another address, because the Rebbeinu Shalom knows that you are the one that needs this to be able to bring out the greatest koichos that are inside of you. If that's what your neighbor needed, or your friend, or your sister needed, when she went to seminary to bring out her koichos, she would have gotten that nisayon. But guess what? She had her own challenges when she was here. But Ezras Hashem Yisbarach, you still have so much time left in this holy land. In the areas of Kedusha, the land that is teeming with ruchnius. I told my wife, I'm not sure I could find my passport anymore. I don't know if I'll be able to make it back to LA after this 7 days in Eretz Yisrael. It's a different world over here. Moshe Rabbeinu, never here. Aaron HaKohen, never here. Vilna Gaon and his wife, never here. Chavetz Chaim and his wife, never here. So many tzaddikim and tzidkonos all the years, never here. And you're here. You're going to complain? It's hard. Guess what? It's supposed to be hard. It's uncomfortable. Guess what? If you didn't want to come, you would stay at home this year. In your room, your private suite, all by yourself. Where you could be at ease and at peace. Have the shower when you want to shower. Turn off the lights when you want to turn off the lights. Listen to the music that you want to listen to when you want to listen. Have a car when you need to get somebody. You could have had it like that. But you decided to come. because you know that this is the best place in the world to be. And be'ezras Hashem Yisbarach, you will grow, and you will achieve levels this year that you never dreamed of achieving. And that itself will be the biggest chos for the shidduch to come like that after this year is over. You know, the son Beis Yaakov girls, they get married like on the plane right back to America. Shachan already worked there, Rabbi Lewenstein already worked everything out. The guy's behind the mechitza over there. There's a rabbi that's, ready to make the chasana. It could be like that if you want. In the schos of you growing this year and accomplishing this year and wrestling with your challenges and not giving up, HaKadosh Baruch Hu should send you tremendous brachos, tremendous siyata d'shemaya, a lot of patience for the girls from 5 towns in Flatbush. And He should send you a lot of simcha in the struggles and the overcoming of the challenge that you have, because that's the ikar, tachlis, habriya. And if you're doing what you were put in this world to do, then you have nothing at all to be complaining and upset about, only to dance and sing with joy be'ez Hashem. So I wish you an amazing year. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to see all of the growth that is already there, and I can't imagine, when you come back from seminary at the end of the year, we don't even recognize who you are. I told you this story before, but I'll just tell you one last time. About 2 or 3 years ago, I was giving an alumni shir in Los Angeles to the girls that had come back from seminary, and there was one girl that was in that crowd that I could not recognize who it was. And I kept scanning the class. She must be from a different school. I had no idea who it is. Only after the class did I hope that this was Plonis, which made me realize that although she was fine before she left, but she took off and became a different person. If you want to take off into the world of spiritual outer space, if you want to take off and you want to grow in ways that you cannot grow any other place in the world, just tap in. And if you tap in, you'll look back on the year, you'll be the happiest person in the world. Be'ez Hashem, use the time wisely. Don't waste it doing silly things. Use it wisely, grow, and be the simcha from all the growth that you're having. Be'ez Hashem.